In the years 2006 and 2007, Mark Wahlberg was poised for greatness. Nominated for Best Supporting Actor for his role as Sergeant Dignam at the Oscars and Golden Globes, it looked like Mark's career would be nothing but top-tier roles from here on. Again in 2011, for the 2010 motion picture The Fighter, Mark received the nomination for Best Performance by an Actor in a Drama. And despite acting in a few duds between both movies, everyone thought Mark had real potential as a future Oscar winner. However, we're well over a decade now since The Fighter's release, and Mark has just about settled into doing nothing but comedies and silly action movies. He may still be an extremely popular actor and beyond wealthy, but where are the great roles? How did the once promising career of Mark Wahlberg turn into what I consider a meme? Today, we're going to discuss exactly what happened to Mark Wahlberg's Oscar-worthy roles. Let's start from the beginning, with the film responsible for Wahlberg's rise to fame, The Basketball Diaries. It was this movie that helped Wahlberg move on from co-star to a leading man, partially thanks to his performance as Mickey in the movie, but also thanks to Leonardo DiCaprio, who turned down the leading role in Paul Thomas Anderson's 1997 flick Boogie Nights in favor of Titanic, and later recommended his co-star Wahlberg to Anderson instead. From here, Mark's career took off. As Dirk Diggler in Boogie Nights, he showed exactly what he's capable of, and this performance was raw, emotional, funny, and charismatic. Without DiCaprio's recommendation of Mark, who knows where he'd be now? But it's entirely possible he could have never broken through as an actor without it. If you haven't seen Boogie Nights yet, definitely check it out, because it proves Mark is the real deal. Eventually, Boogie Nights led Mark towards multiple starring roles throughout the early 2000s, in films such as Planet of the Apes, The Italian Job, and Four Brothers. By this point, despite having not starred in anything as serious or good as Boogie Nights in nearly 10 years, Wahlberg would soon be given a shot by legendary director Martin Scorsese to show off his talent again in 2006's The Departed. From this, as mentioned earlier, Mark received his first ever nomination for an Academy Award for his role as Sergeant Dignam. If you saw The Departed in 2006, Mark probably took you by surprise, especially if you hadn't seen Boogie Nights. I mean, in the early 2000s, Mark Wahlberg just delivered performances similar to what we see from him now, thanks mostly to the type of movies he starred in. But The Departed reminded us what Mark's capable of, and thankfully, he got rewarded for his great performance with an Oscar nomination. But only a few years later, Mark took on a role that was almost a complete opposite of the greatness we saw in Boogie Nights and The Departed. This role would be in the 2008 horror movie The Happening, which is considered one of the worst films ever made, and the worst by M. Night Shyamalan to many. I really have no idea what anyone was thinking by getting themselves involved in this project. It's something you'd never see from Mark's Departed co-stars Matt Damon or Leonardo DiCaprio. Sure, both of those guys have done movies that aren't totally favored by critics, but never would they do a film that makes them look like a joke. Unfortunately for Mark, I don't think The Happening did him any favors. I guess the paycheck just got in the way of taking on a better role. We'll talk more about that shortly. Real quick before we continue, hit that subscribe button and like this video if you're enjoying what you've seen so far. Later on, once again, Mark was gifted with a serious role in the 2010 film by David O. Russell, The Fighter. For the third time in his career, Mark got the opportunity to show off his pure talent and did great as expected, earning another Golden Globe nomination. However, The Fighter would basically mark the end of his Oscar potential, because in the 14 years since, he's done nothing but what he's mostly become known for: comedies and action movies. Now, I'll admit he's at least starred in some pretty damn good films since 2010, including Lone Survivor, Deepwater Horizon, and Patriots Day, but the bad movies certainly outweigh the good ones. And none of those great films were written for Mark to show off his great acting skills either. He just played a generic character and churned out the bare minimum. The truth is, Mark hasn't had to dig deep as an actor since 2010. He's not being challenged at all, which is a shame because I know he's capable of winning an Oscar. So the question is, why hasn't Mark been given more Oscar-worthy roles lately? Well, I think the answer is simple. Right now, Mark is living the easy life, and mostly has been for his entire career. I bet he got offered a few parts over the last 14 years that could have maybe landed him an Oscar, but clearly he declined. And even though he hasn't been in anything particularly great for a while now, his net worth is still $400 million. He's getting boatloads of cash for every single movie. Streaming services like Netflix are paying Wahlberg millions as well to star in B-level movies. But I guess people are tuning in, and Mark's always the star, so it makes sense why he's taken this path. In fact, I can't remember the last film where he was a co-star. So yeah, Mark has definitely prioritized money and fun over taking on difficult roles. Most likely, at this point in his career, Mark doesn't care about winning an Oscar. From his eyes, he's already proven everything. Not only did he do great in the films he had to do great in, but he's also established himself as a money-making juggernaut in Hollywood. Looking back at a movie like The Fighter, it only had an $11 million budget, and apparently, Mark made just $500K for his role as Mickey Ward. There's reports he may have even taken this role for free. At the end of the day, though, he didn't get nominated for Best Actor at that year's Oscars, and he never won an Academy Award for any of his best roles. So my guess is that Mark said, screw this, I'm only having fun from here on out. I'm taking my money and will have a blast making stupid movies. Like Flight Risk this weekend, for instance. I'm just disappointed because I love when Mark takes on Oscar-worthy roles. I know he's capable of being one of Hollywood's greatest when given the best material. I'll never forget his performances in Boogie Nights or The Departed. He's a big reason why those movies were so good in the first place. What he's done lately in comparison, though, is not living up to his potential. But hopefully one day soon, Mark can return to the promised land by starring in something spectacular, and finally getting nominated again or even win an Oscar this time. An award he absolutely deserves before his inevitable retirement. Alright, well that's it for today. Thank you all so much for those who stuck around to watch the entire video. And if you enjoyed this, leave a like and please consider subscribing. Let me know your thoughts on this discussion too in the comments. I'll catch you all in the next one. See you then.